Hello and a very warm welcome. In today's world, businesses are making complex deals all the time, often across borders. But with that complexity comes risk. And maybe the biggest risk of all is, what if you don't get paid? What happens if the other side doesn't hold up their end of the bargain? Well, today, we're going to pull back the curtain on a really powerful tool that's designed to protect you from exactly that. We're going to break down how to secure your payments using something called a demand guarantee. And by the end of our time together, you'll understand exactly what these are and, even more importantly, how to write a letter of demand that ensures you get paid.
So let's start right there with that central question. How do you guarantee you get paid when a deal goes wrong? Just imagine for a second, you shipped a huge order of goods, or maybe you started work on a big construction project, but then the other party simply defaults. That's the kind of thing that can keep any business owner awake at night. The solution, really, is to have a solid, independent promise of payment ready and waiting. And that is exactly what we're going to explore today. All right, so here's our roadmap for today. It's pretty straightforward. First, we'll talk about the demand guarantee itself, which I like to think of as your ultimate payment safety net. Then, we'll look at the key you need to unlock that safety net, the demand. After that, and this is the really practical part, we'll go step by step through how to build a perfect, compliant demand. From there, we'll see what happens when that demand goes under the bank's microscope. And we'll finish up with a simple checklist for success that you can use. Okay, let's jump into our first section, the payment safety net. Before we can really get into writing a letter of demand, we first have to understand the thing it's built on, the demand guarantee itself. You can think of this as the secure vault that's holding your payment, just waiting for you. So, what is a demand guarantee? Well, at its very core, it's a promise. A guarantor, which is almost always a bank, gives this promise to you, the one who's supposed to get paid. We call you the beneficiary. And the promise is simple. The bank will pay you a set amount of money as long as you present them with what's called a complying demand. That word irrevocable is so important here. It means the bank can't just wake up one day and decide to cancel the promise. It's locked in. Now, if there's one single thing you need to remember about demand guarantees, it's this word: independence. This is their superpower. It's what makes them so different and, frankly, so much more effective than other kinds of guarantees. It is a total game changer. And this really shows the difference perfectly. On one side, you've got the demand guarantee. The bank's duty to pay you is triggered only by the documents you give them. They look at your demand letter, and if the paperwork is correct, they pay. They don't get involved in the argument you're having with your business partner. They don't investigate whether the project was late. Now, look at the other side, a traditional suretyship. With that, you'd have to go and legally prove that the other party defaulted on the contract. That could mean going to court for months, maybe even years. The demand guarantee's independence just cuts right through all of that, making payment fast and certain. Now, to make sure everybody in the world is on the same page about this principle of independence, the International Chamber of Commerce, or the ICC, created a set of rules. They're called the Uniform Rules for Demand Guarantees, or just URG 758 for short. Think of this as the official international rulebook. When a guarantee says it's subject to URG 758, it just means everyone agrees to play by these clear, predictable rules, which makes life a lot simpler for everybody involved. So we have our vault. That's the demand guarantee. Now let's talk about the key we need to open it. And that key is the demand itself, or more specifically, the letter of demand that you're going to write. So, what exactly is a demand? Well, under the URDG rules, it's a signed document where you, the beneficiary, officially ask for payment. But, and this is a big but, it can't be just any request. It has to be a complying demand. And what that means is it has to perfectly match every single requirement written into the guarantee, plus the URDG rules. It's exactly like a key that has to be cut with perfect precision to fit the lock. Any little error, and it won't work. This brings us right to our next section, and it's probably the most important one: building a compliant demand. This is where we get our hands dirty. We're going to move from the what to the how and actually forge that perfect key step by step so you can unlock your payment without any trouble. All right, here are the 4 building blocks of a complying demand. First, it has to be the original paper document with a real physical signature. A photocopy or a scan usually won't cut it. Second, the date is so important. You have to date it on or after the day you actually have the right to claim the money. Third, you have to clearly state the exact amount you're demanding. No fuzzy numbers. And fourth, and this one is absolutely essential, your demand has to include a specific supporting statement. This is the direct language from the rulebook URDG 758, and it's so important to understand. It says a demand shall be supported by a statement, indicating in what respect the other party is in breach. That word shall means this isn't a suggestion, it's a mandatory rule. This supporting statement is really the heart of your entire claim. So the key takeaway here is that your statement must be specific. Just writing something like, the applicant is in breach of the contract is not good enough. A bank would likely reject that. You have to explain how they're in breach. So for example, you'd write something like, the applicant is in breach because they failed to deliver the 500 widgets required by Clause 7 of Contract Number 123 by the final deadline of March 31st. You see the difference? It's specific, it's clear, and it points to the exact failure. Okay, so you've crafted your demand letter. You've forged that perfect key. You've sent it to the bank. What happens next? Well, now it goes under the microscope. The bank is going to examine your work to see if that key really does fit the lock. And here we are, back at that core principle of independence again. The bank's job is to look at the documents you gave them, and only those documents. They'll look at your demand letter and your supporting statement. They are not private eyes. They're not going to call the other party to get their side of the story. They're not going to read through your emails. It is a purely documentary check. And the bank doesn't have all the time in the world to figure this out. The URDG rules are very clear on this. They give the bank a maximum of 5 business days, starting the day after they receive your demand, to examine it and make a decision. This is really a protection for you, the beneficiary. It means your claim isn't going to get stuck in limbo for weeks or months. It provides that speed and certainty that makes the demand guarantees so valuable in the first place. When the bank is examining your documents, one of the main things they look for is consistency. The rule is that the data in your documents must not conflict. So take a look at this. In the top example, the demand is for 80,000 euros, and a supporting document also shows a loss of 80,000 euros. The data lines up. That's a compliant demand. But now look at the bottom row. The demand asks for 100,000 euros, but the supporting document only justifies a loss of 80,000. That's a direct conflict. The demand is non-complying, and it's going to be rejected. So what happens if the bank does find a problem? Well, they have to follow some very strict rules. They have to send you a single notice that lists each and every specific reason for the rejection. They can't just be vague and say your documents were incorrect. They also have to tell you what they're going to do with your rejected documents. And here's the really powerful part. If the bank doesn't follow these rules perfectly, they are blocked or precluded from claiming your demand was faulty. That means they might be forced to pay you anyway, even if there were errors in your original documents. We have covered a lot of ground today, from the basic idea of the guarantee all the way to the bank's examination process. So let's bring it all home in our final section, your checklist for success. Think of this as your final takeaway to make sure you get it right every single time. So before you ever send a demand, just run through these points. Is it the original document with a real signature? Is the date correct? Not too early, not too late? Is the amount you're claiming stated clearly? And just as important, is it consistent with any other documents you're sending? Does it have that critical, specific supporting statement explaining the breach? And finally, check the small stuff. Is it in the right language, and are you submitting it in the right format? Paper or electronic? Following this simple checklist will dramatically increase your chances of getting paid smoothly and successfully. So we'll end with a question for you to think about. Now that you understand how this all works, how can a deeper understanding of these rules empower you in your own business and negotiations? Knowing how to correctly use a guarantee gives you real leverage. It shows your partners that you're serious and you're protected. Remember, a demand guarantee is an independent promise unlocked by a purely documentary demand, and that demand has to contain a specific statement of breach. By mastering these rules, you turn a complex financial product into a reliable tool for your business. I really hope this has been helpful. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. We love to hear from you. And if you found this valuable, a like is always so appreciated. And be sure to subscribe for more explainers that make complex topics simple. Thanks so much for watching.